we're live.
Hello.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Andrea, for making the time today. I appreciate you cutting some time in your busy schedule for this.
Thank you for involving me. Happy
Yeah,
to
of
be here.
course. Of course. Um, I initially stumbled upon your work when I saw this black and white series that you did um, of the kids playing by the fire hydrant. It's basically like the photo that you have here.
Yeah.
Uh, it just reminded me a lot of because this isn't from the modern day, right? This is from like the 70s or something, 60s, something like that.
Yeah, it is inspired by the 80s, 90s, actually, even though the black and white reminds of the 60s a bit more. It's supposed to evoke the birth of urban culture in New York. So, yeah, it's around the 70s, 80s, maybe. That's
Y-
probably. But of course, in this AI space, time is not well defined.
Yeah, because it reminded me of like photos I've seen, like old photos, especially of like kids playing around a fire hydrant, and I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I don't think I've actually ever seen that in my life. It's always just like a something that they use in a movie or in some like creative video. But I've actually never seen it done in real life. I assumed that like when they did this, it was because like the fire hydrant is broken. I didn't think that you could like just intentionally let it out. I I figured that would be a problem for the city.
Yeah. I also always wondered. It looks like very vulnerable, let's say,
Infrastructure.
infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it shows up in the movies quite often. Um, the image you were showing before, I think it reminds of hydrants, even though it's a neon light. So it's like a mashup of two things, probably.
Yeah, this piece right here. Yeah, that's right. And how did you actually get started in this? Because when we interviewed Nomads there, um, he like just kind of stumbled into the world of art. It was never like a precise vision that he had. Like, yeah, when I grow up, I'm gonna be an artist. It was just kind of something that he fell into um, after certain like moves in his life. But what about yourself?
Yeah, I think my story is quite similar in a way. Um, I've been working in advertising for more than 20 years. I've been for a long time a copywriter, so I've been mostly writing, but I've been drawing all my life. So I wanted to be
All right, my
a
friend.
visual artist, but uh, I actually uh, realized that there wasn't a lot of space. I started working, but I kept writing and drawing and a bit of a nerdy side alive. So when I stumbled upon the first AI models, it felt like a very good fit for me because I could use words to produce visuals, and it was very nerdy. So it was like a multidisciplinary tool in a way that was stimulating for all kinds of creativity that I wanted to express. And I started playing with the tools a little bit. This was back in 2022, I think, when the first text to image models came out. And it really felt uh, I think like the first modems, getting the first modems and the first interconnection. I'm an 80s kid, so I've been through the emotion of getting on the internet for the first time, and that feeling of being able to do something that feels entirely magical was there. It had not happened for a long time, so it was quite a seismic technology for me. And I started playing. I play a lot with tools. I like to just see what they can do. What is the limit? How you can actually guide them to do weird things. And that's how I started it actually. I also got into art in a pretty casual way. I think it was mostly by playing. And playing got me to probably get tired with the things that the models were doing very well, like the commercial output, the very clean images, and I started to try and get a bit beyond what the model was supposed to do. I think that's the most fun part. I mean, coming from an agency background, I also see how you can apply that in a very polite way, if you know what I mean, is
Hmm.
to produce commercial output, and that's one side of the story. Then you can use it to do something else, right? And that's the interesting part where I'm still exploring at the moment.
I see, I see. And when you were working in advertising, was that like also something that you stumbled into, or had you always kind of wanted to work from with that going out of school?
Well, I still do, by the way, and I also stumbled quite into advertising because I was writing at the time. I was still studying actually. I started working quite young, and a friend of mine knew that I love to write and told me there is a an open position for a copywriter. Didn't know what it was actually at the time, so I just went there for a first test, and it was a very good fit for me because I couldn't get bored. You know, it's very hard to get bored in advertising, and I tend to get bored pretty easily. So yeah, I stayed. I stayed because I wanted the variety and the be stimulated all the time, and advertising does a good job at that. So yeah, I kind of stumbled. I've always been you know loving the act of creating first and then finding a way and a place where I can create rather than see a career in front of me. That's a very disorderly way to proceed, but that's the way I actually uh, go forward.
Yeah, no, that certainly makes sense. And how much? I'm guessing you've seen Mad Men.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much of that? Because I know like it's obviously it's set in a very particular time, and obviously like the culture has like dramatically changed. But in terms of the process itself of making copy and doing all these meetings with the client and this whole back and forth, how much of that is actually like true and based in reality, based on the show?
Um, I think it's quite accurate, but of course it did change with time. And it did change because the big campaign, which used to be the object of the work in the 60s and 70s, has largely disappeared because we have so many touch points and so many channels that we use that the big idea and the big campaign that used to be the main object of the work of agencies like DDB and Ogilvy and so on is less frequent. So the feeling is that agencies nowadays have a lower level of, let's say, uh, conversation with the company. If you watch Mad Men, you will have the Donald Draper talking with the CEO, right? The
Hmm.
creative director going straight to the top floors. That doesn't happen that much now. So yeah, I guess it's become a bit less romantic and a bit less dramatic in a way. But there is one thing that I think we shouldn't forget, which is the creative couple, the art director and the copywriter. And I think this thing is that they try to dismantle these and create teams and create a more horizontal structure. But the creative couple uh, just works very well. Not because two persons do different things, but because they have a back and forth mechanism. And now that I think about it, it's very similar to what you have like in hip hop, where you have the rapper and you have the DJ, and they usually make a couple. And it's like the minimum possible unit of uh, creative interaction. More than that, you get noise. Less than that, you get just the lone artist. So I think it's an accurate series. It's very inspiring for young creatives, but the truth today is more nuanced, more complicated, definitely. But some things still hold true.
Yeah, interesting. Because I figured like because now that kind of that profession has become globalized, that there's not really a need for um, there's not really a market need to have like these big names with big clients. If like companies like Nike, they can hire, you know, independent creators or just people that are out of the country. I mean, one of the people that we interviewed in the past, I believe she goes by the name of, or they go by the name of Angel. They've done work for a multitude of brands, and they're just like some independent creator living in South Africa. Let me see if I can pull up some of their work here.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, brands are increasingly going to individual creators. The role of the agencies is shifting a lot today. I think very big agencies today are more like consultancies, so they handle complex things. Middle-sized agencies are more troubled in a way. I think the role is probably to uh, help clients with preserving the meaning of what they're doing, right? Because creators, I mean, I also work as a creator and I work at the agency side, and it's quite a different thing. You work as a creator, you focus on your piece and doing the best creative work on that piece. You don't really care what the brand is doing over a 12-month period or a 2 years period.
Hmm.
That should be the agency role, right? To oversee the long term, I think. Short term, yeah, you have plenty of good creators, so there is an abundance of content going around. The word content, I don't love it, but yeah, we understand.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Um, but yeah, no, that's it's an interesting dynamic because the thing is like now the landscape has shifted from, as you said, like doing these big campaigns to all these like multi-channel marketing, whether it's
Yeah.
traditional advertising like buying a billboard or having a TV spot. Um, with social media, you have the creating of the what's called the influencer economy. So now you can actually market to people through a more familiar face, somebody that like puts their life out online, so it allows them to have closer reach and relationship with the audience. And companies can just simply say, "Hey, why don't we send you some merch and or product or what have you? You can test it, and then they can just put it out into the world." It's the landscape is just so different than what it actually used to be.
Yeah, it is. I think what stays true is uh, just the way you get to ideas, and there is not a lot of time and space to get to ideas the same way we saw in Mad Men, for example. There is a non, um, uh, let's say, an amount of time that you need that cannot be compressed too much. But that's gonna be out of the window today. So, and you see the madman with her feet on the table, like talking about an idea. That looks very weird today. But it makes me think about the human limits and the human dimension, which is quite unchangeable. I think about it because it's something that I also see in working with AI. Um, AI moves very fast. For example,
Hmm.
the tech is evolving very fast. It's so fast that an artist could be making a series, and while they're working on a series, the technology itself will change, and it feels old while you're working on it. Um, and that's, I think it's very new because of course tech has always changed the technology used by artists,
Hmm.
but not at this pace. And the challenge that we are seeing is that the evolution of tech is faster than artistic research, and that's troubling because you're trying to develop an idea, you're trying to develop an approach, but you're like uh, a dog that is captivated by flashy things all the time, and we see that a lot. I mean, it's a very fine balance for AI artists, especially not to be just testers of new technology all the time, because that's very seductive. That's very seductive.
So when you say that, do you mean that there's, because of how breakneck speed like the AI tech is advancing, um, that artists, there's not enough time for them to sit with the model and explore like all their capabilities before a new update is rolled out or an entirely new model is released. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, not just testing the model, but developing the creative idea within yourself. I think it takes a bit of time to go from your initial inspiration to what you really want to say. It takes some time to ferment and grow. And I mean, traditionally, artists took their time to go through an idea and explore it and, evolve it, regardless of the tech. Today, you might need maybe 6 months, 1 year to get a creative idea, fully formed. But by then, a model will have changed maybe 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very strange, and I don't have an answer, honestly, about that. Because of course you cannot be chasing the new stuff, but you cannot even be ignoring that, because that's that's just not how it works. So that I've talked about this with other AI artists, and it's a common problem. I think trying to stay updated in a way, because maybe a new model comes up that allows you to do what you wanted in a better way, but at the same time that cannot be your main occupation to just test tools all the time. I like to test tools, so I speak by experience and by personal weakness.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's fair enough. Um, and in terms of your approach to getting this, getting into work with advertising, is it something that people can like get a diploma for, go to school? Is there like a direct path, or is it just kind of like you have the creative instincts and you want to work on more formalized projects, and they just kind of gather people from all sorts of different backgrounds? Like how much of that process to like getting into that world is structured? Something like if you want to be some kind of a chemist, like you got to do this many years and in science, get this diploma, work at this pharmacy or what have you. How much of that would you say is like structured, or is it more free form?
Well, I think it has changed quite a lot from when I started. When I first got into the agency, there were a lot of weird people, and I say it in a good way, coming from all walks of life. It was mostly about being creative in general, and then you will just find your way and learn the craft. But in the meanwhile, the profession got very appealing. We had the superstar creatives of the 90s, so kids wanted to get in the job, so schools reacted, schools were born, and now you have a whole system of schools that are training creatives. um, and what I see with the young creatives is that they have a pretty strong uh, training on the formal side.
Hmm.
So they can do like a brand identity very well. They can present very well. They will make their own decks, which is all very good. What I feel is that we are missing a bit of the uh, punk side of advertising. Like you get less weird people, you know, because if you do that as a career, it's all good, and it responds to what the industry is calling for right now, which is being able to work from day one on a very ordered workflow. uh, but the people you would find before were even problematic. They were very strange, but you would find very original people. They would just not trained. They just stumbled upon the job, and you would get that kind of brilliance that comes from being a bit weird. I think we don't have a lot of weirdness in advertising today. It's much less than before. So today, yes, probably the path for an aspiring creative is to um, do some kind of school, and probably schools can get places in agencies through direct contacts. Like you will have creative directors that are teaching. It's more of a system today, but there is still space maybe for weird people, maybe in smaller agencies or indie agencies. there could be a way for them. But yeah, I think you should think about it from before. There is a there has been a bit of a talent crisis because, of course, tech companies were paying more, so young talent was going there rather than agencies, which have been paying notoriously a bit less. Uh, it's all about figuring out whether you want to, uh, get into a very challenging industry, and then yeah, study a little bit. I would say that if you want to be a good creative and not just find a job, you should cultivate interests that are quite borderline, not just focus on doing brand identity and all the canonical part, because that's just the base. You need to have some weird sides, definitely.
Yeah, no, you definitely you need those characters because there's no way for anything new to be created if everything just becomes a bureaucratic process. If you just have a handbook for everything that needs to be done, like you can still make some decently creative work, sure, but for anyone that is actually going to challenge convention and make something new, they need to have some kind of character that allows them that creative freedom to explore like a theme or a topic, that maybe it might not work, it might not be successful, or it might not be funny or just, attractive initially, but over time as they iterate, there can actually be something really unique that comes from it. Because I don't know what advertising is like in Europe, but one of the things that I've noticed here in North America is that a lot of the campaigns that I see, and I don't watch much TV these days, but whenever I get with family, commercials and everything come on, and I've just noticed that a lot of emphasis has been placed on the quality of celebrity, just trying to
Mm.
get like endorsements from people, which that's a time tested thing in advertising. I'd imagine that get somebody famous behind a product and they can really lift the brand. I mean, George Clooney has been doing Nescafe commercials for like how many decades now? Um, trying to think of some
Yeah,
other
and
notable examples. Shaq has been doing he has this like not moisturizer, but this like muscle pain cream that he's been doing for all these years. Um, and what ends up happening, I find, is that the pitch that's made in the ad, a lot more of it rests on like the popularity of the person or like something funny that they said, but not on the creativeness of the ad itself. So it just ends up being like kind of hollow, like, oh, look at us, we managed to pay Matthew McConaughey to drive in a car for an hour or whatever. But there's
Mhm.
not really anything that's like, you know, pushing boundaries. Like I'm not really looking at advertising as like I don't know, a work of art or anything. It just seems, oh, okay, well, they had a focus group, they did the math, they knew exactly how much of an audience this would bring. So it just seemed like the whole thing was calculated.
Yeah, yeah, it's more formulaic today. You don't see provocative work very often, or even just purely witty.
Hmm.
There is a lot of yeah. I would say we also use a lot of celebrities in Europe as well. Maybe not as much as in the US, but yeah, quite a lot. But of course, what we also know, and we know it by data, is that uh, celebrity is never as good as a brand character, for example, because it's never really yours.
Hmm.
So it's I think it's like a branding drug. You get a sharp, instant action, but in the long run, it doesn't pay unless, of course, you get a long running like George Clooney. Like you know, in that case, it's like a cross contamination. So you get very bound. But there is a lot of I think a bit of lazy thinking. But I understand that it's very difficult today to push a campaign that would be that would really cut through. There is maybe a lot of fear to to get out of it. You will get campaigns that are apparently witty, but they don't really scratch. They don't really bite. Uh, And I don't know the reason, but when you look at the brilliant examples of copywriting in the 60s and 70s, you can tell they were at the same time they were crazy and they were really professional, and that's something that can be done. It can be done.
Yeah, like there's that one infamous, I think it was a Volkswagen ad, which is actually mentioned in the in Mad Men, I believe. I think it was this campaign that they did, where they actually like um, they made it a point to be in a way self-deprecating about their car because they knew that they had the perception of like being kind of like a silly design. Like, okay, yeah, like fine, we get it, but we're actually going to embrace it and take it upon ourselves and uh, make fun of ourselves for it. Like this one, especially here with, I think that's a Globetrotter basketball player who obviously like would
Yeah.
never fit in the car because the joke is, oh, the Volkswagen is so small, why would you ever drive a vehicle like that? But they leaned into it.
Yeah, yeah. These kind of ads are like the ones that used to be taught in school. I don't know if they still teach them in school, uh, honestly, because you don't see this approach anymore. But yeah, I mean, they embrace the human imperfection and imperfection in general as a device, which is something that I think works very well. We had an obsession with perfection in everything, and we got some very boring stuff out of it. I think it's the the millennial Instagram aesthetic, which is hopefully over. Um, got us a lot of ads that are like mood boards.
Mm,
Uh, there is still a bit of that. You just get a lot of mood and mood and mood, and you don't ever get anything that like these pierces through. You get something. The thing is that I don't want to say there are no good copywriters anymore. Of course there are, but it's also a matter of amplification. Like you might get something very witty, very nice that is just an Instagram post today, and just get some people to smirk and maybe get some engagement.
mm.
And in the 60s, you would get on all newspapers and on all billboards, and everybody will see it, right? So I think it's both the message and the media that work together. Nowadays, it's very hard to get one single message spread across. So you get like the message to be adapted to different channels, and you will get conversion messages that are very commercial. It's very hard to get this kind of humor through. But hopefully, some people are keeping the flame alive for when maybe we get another chance at it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like with most things with human nature, we're always reacting to our circumstances. So, you know, at some point, there's going to be like a threshold that's going to reach where people are like, all right, we've had enough of this formulaic BS. Like, we don't want to just have to rely on that as some kind of a crutch. You know, we don't want that quick boost from just having a celebrity. We want to actually make a name for ourselves and do something different. But I think eventually it'll come. I think it's only a matter of time because, you know, as he said, like it's just these ads. There's not really much of a reaction. Like you said, you just kind of get a smirk out of it, or oh, haha, like you know they had this joke, but it doesn't really connect with the audience in any meaningful way or create any kind of lasting impression on them. Um, but yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before the pendulum swings around. And just to pivot a little, in terms of your own work here, because you're a combination photography and AI artist, how much of it is actually based on the photography that you do? Because from my understanding, people that work with this medium, they would actually have a model that they train on their own body of work and then generate from there.
Well, not in my case, actually, as I work with various models, which are not usually trained. I don't do photography, by the way, so I'm using the models which are sometimes open source, sometimes there are commercial ones. I create workflows that are elaborate so that actually the final image can be the result of a series of steps. And I'm trying mostly to refer to styles that resonate in some way. I started doing black and white with the series of the kids that you saw. It's called On the Streets. It was my first proper collection. Uh, and this is, yeah, if you, I think if you scroll a bit down, this is other work. Yeah, this is On the Streets. It's 100 pieces. Um, and I started doing this black and white. I think mostly as a way to self regulate myself and give myself some boundaries. I was trying every possible trick with AI, and you can do anything you want, right? The thing with the models is that they are like this huge pool of styles and concepts that are you can just fish from. But that's even too much, right? It's too it's too wide. So I decided to limit to black and white and try to focus on that. And I found out that working with black and white, just like in photography, allows you and the model to focus on shapes more than anything else. So it led me to a process where I could actually warp space while preserving the realistic um, finish of a photography, right? I wanted the details to be feel very crispy, very photographic, and a bit nostalgic, while having a word that would be entirely impossible. It was a way to um, channel an idea that came to me when working with these tools. Because we called it artificial intelligence, and I think this word is a bit thrown around very easily. When you work with image models, it's not much of an artificial intelligence, it's more of an artificial memory, because it's a backward tool that is picking stuff from the shared memories of the visual memories of the digital age. And it works very similarly to our memory. Um, I actually did another series which was it was not never released. Um, it was just a personal project, which was called "The Way I Remember Things." It was my first experiment in trying to establish a parallel between AI and memory. And back then, the idea was already that of warping the image a little bit. I will just a second. I will share some images with you about this series. I started with these were older models, by the way. So of course the feeling was a bit different. And the first ones, just give me a second. I want to get one.
Yeah, no problem.
For example, just so for example, this kind of images, like this one or other ones. I was trying to get the model, which, by the way, was Midjourney back then. So it's a very clean commercial model to act a bit weird. And I realized that I could do something very simple if you want technically. I mean, you know that image models work with a diffusion, reverse diffusion technique. So they start from noise and they get to an image. And the way they see an image in the noise is the hallucination which creates the image. So when we say hallucination as a bad thing, is actually the way the model works. It hallucinates things that don't exist, right? So we give a prompt, we ask for something, and the model sees that tree or that dog in the noise. I realized that if I could actually intervene in the diffusion process several times and misguide the model, I could actually get weird results. And I could do something that was similar to the way we recall memories. We think we remember things, but we actually remember the shadows of things, and they're very warped, but they looked very real in our minds. So this was a very long-running experiment, and it went from this kind of images to other images like maybe this one, um, which were a bit wider. And I kept experimenting. It was a very long-running experiment because I was just enjoying the idea of bringing the model to do things it was not supposed to. Already then, I mean, we're talking 2023. Midjourney was already very well behaving model, uh, and I started to refine the approach a little bit as the model was, of course, getting better itself, and it allowed me to get images like this one that I'm sharing now, which were cleaner in their outlook. They were more realistic,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave me more control over the the space that could be warped in a way. So it was a first exploration of how you use a model that is struggling to create realism, to create something that is not entirely real, but it's actually uh, hallucinating. But consideration, I think the hallucinations in the way we conceive them, which are weird things that AI does, right? The hands with six fingers and
Mm-hmm.
the person with two noses, all those kind of things. A lot of AI art has been working on hallucinations so far. I've been working on hallucinations as well, and I still do. Uh, but I always say that we should consider how real that is. Like when artists in the AI art space started working with models, so 2022, 23, hallucinations were very real and very present. So models would hallucinate by themselves, right? They were very imperfect. So using hallucination was really a way to just show uh, the current state of the tech and reflect on its imperfection. One dilemma today is that models don't hallucinate that much anymore. So, of course, you can get them to hallucinate. You can still get video models to hallucinate because they're not mature yet as much as image models are, even though they're progressing. But getting a hallucination today is more of an effort. Like you need to be pushing the hallucination a little bit. So I love the aesthetic of hallucinations, and I still chase them, but I'm also reflecting on how uh, honest it is in relation to the technology. Like if you get maybe in, let's say, 2 years, tech that will create images that are 100% real, totally undistinguishable. A few days ago, there was an AI model on Vogue, I think. So, we're getting there quite quickly. Um, so the hallucinations feel a bit nostalgic right now to me. We are like looking back at the early stage of technology, and it feels weird because it's just 2 years ago. So we are not maybe equipped to understand that is tech nostalgia because it's very close, but the tech has moved beyond. So it's what was I referring to before. If an artist has a whole research that has to do with hallucinations, but those hallucinations don't appear anymore, how do you deal with that? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I still love to create them, but that's the thing. That's the thing. We are working with evolving tools, and that's the thing. But yeah, I think this series led me to the black and white one, the On the Streets, which of course was more measured, more controlled than I wanted to tell. Kind of a different story there. Because in this case it was a wider reflection on we remember things in a weird way and so on and so forth. And in that case, it was a bit more personal because I've grown up in Italy in the 90s, 80s and 90s. I've always been an avid listener of hip hop music, and I've been watching urban culture come from the US. I was not the only one, of course. It was not as developed in Europe at the time.
Hmm.
Were just, watching videos from New York rappers and listening to CDs from East Coast and West Coast, and we're creating an image in our minds. And it was a clear case of made up memories. Like, when you live your uh, teen years immersed in a culture, in a visual culture, even if it's not yours, it becomes a memory. That's the weird thing about memories. They don't really care if you live that for real or uh, vicariously. Uh, and it's actually, I thought that AI was very appropriate to describe that, because AI is using shared memories which don't necessarily belong to you personally, but you can activate them anyway, because uh, let's say that the uh, society of digital image created a shared pool of visual culture, and we all draw from that. So I wanted to go there to try to imagine those years, not having lived there. So they're, of course, they come from imagination. They're not
Hmm.
real photographs, and yet lots of people feel a kind of nostalgia looking at them, because it's more of a general feeling that they actually convey. It was a lot of fun, of course, creating all these architectures, and I think many themes that I'm exploring, they were already here. Uh, the power of bending the city, and that was a lot of work, of course, because it was a 100 pieces series, but it was definitely what convinced me that I wanted to do this more and more.
Interesting. So when you talk about hallucinations, uh, the problem that you run into with the new models is that they're so good at making everything so clean and crisp that it takes an effort, quite amount of effort, to get the AI model to hallucinate all these things, like whether it's a road leading to nowhere or some kind of optical illusion or one aspect of the image blending into another. That's become a lot harder to do now.
Yeah, or at least, I mean, it doesn't happen by chance. That's
Hmm.
the thing. You would, with the early models, you would be just venturing, discovering the tools, and weird things would happen, and you would just find a way to, make art with that. There, you need to plan for that, because otherwise, you get very realistic things. And I think, we're seeing a lot of AIs a lot invading TikTok and Instagram, all these
Hmm.
videos that are quite real, but they're not real. And not just the VO3 stupid stuff, but everything. Um, that's another uh, field of artistic reflection right now. The uh, the way we can't distinguish anymore between the fake and the real with AI, something that artists are now starting to explore. It wouldn't make sense 2 years ago because it was very clear that it was fake.
Right.
But today it's more creepy. So there is a whole new area to explore. Even playing, with formats that belong to socials. There is a lot to do. Models are different, and I think we will see very interesting stuff coming up.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, I'd imagine that big companies like Midjourney and whatnot, like as they're in a race to keep everything as up to date as possible, there are still quite a few open source models that people can launch that will still have these hallucinations. So it's not to say that we've kind of moved past that and that's no longer going to be a thing anymore. It's just that the main commercial entities that are operating in the space, their incentive structure is aligned to make it so that these hallucinations appear less and less, but there is still an avenue for artists like yourself or otherwise to use these older models and still get like these interesting hallucinations.
Sure, sure. I think I mean I know artists who have their own uh, archive of old models, a bit like old cameras, and I also use open source when I want to get a bit out, and do weird stuff. I think that's perfectly okay, and we all love them. So you're right. I mean, the incentives going the other way because all these models are now uh, trying to seduce the advertising industry, the production industry.
Hmm.
So you want to have great control, great quality, no mistakes, and that makes sense. I mean, they wouldn't exist if they were only paid for by artists. So
Of
it
course.
makes sense. But yeah, we can. It also pays to combine. I mean, one prejudice that I find a lot when I talk about AI art with people outside of the space is that you're prompting and getting out an image, and then that's the work. Of course, it's not like that, and the process is usually much more complicated, and it involves several tools combined. You still create a process, you still bring a vision, and the tool just make different things than all tools. But it's not just about being a slave to what the tools does. So I think we still have a lot of space to be in control. I mean, there is a lot of doom talking about AI and creativity. Like AI is replacing, AI will be killing human creativity, and I don't entirely agree. It will create a lot of laziness, of course. Technology always brings about democratization and laziness, and that makes sense.
Hmm.
But what I see is that humans always, creative humans, which are born creative or have a creative attitude, always find a way to be in control and to either break the tool or bring it beyond what is expected or combine. I mean, we love mastery. Mastery feels good to us, so we find ways to master the tools. Yeah, of course, you will find a lot of lazy videos as you find a lot of bad tourist photos made with the perfect iPhone camera. I mean
Hmm.
that's all expected, but it's not really killing any creativity. It's just bringing up a lot of people that just create stuff that wouldn't before, and I mean that's all good. Um, in the early days, this feels like a long time ago, but it's just 3 years ago. I was spending a bit of time in the AI art subreddits. It was actually most about uh, not really art, just Gen AI subreddits. Um, you will get a lot of tips and a lot of hate as well. Um, and it was quite harsh at the time. Uh, so I started investigating a little bit because I loved post photography, especially about what was said of photography when it came out. Um, and it was surprising how many of the critical remarks that were moved against photography in the early days were perfectly could be applied perfectly to AI art. Were just the same. And one notable hater, if you want to call him that, of photography was Baudelaire, nonetheless. I mean, I was surprised to read that Baudelaire, the great poet, he said that when with the advent of photography, art was dead. You know, because of course, when you compress one kind of mastery into a very easy process, feels like art is dead. But art just finds another way to express itself. Like one part of the process is now very fast, you will spend your time somewhere else probably, right? And art will still exist in other ways. I mean, photography is still alive, and while you may get less food photography, for example, you will still get a lot of photography in the real world. So I'm not that pessimistic about it. I think humans are quite extraordinary compared to AI, and we will still find a way to express ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And I know exactly the kind of perspective that you're talking about. It mostly comes up whenever there's a big story about a major studio like Disney using AI for some of its work. And while I understand the perspective that some people have in terms of, what happens to the creative team and all the layoffs and restructuring and all that, at the end of the day, uh, it's my opinion that there has never been a better time in human history for creatives to have an audience and actually make a living off of what they do. I mean, the amount of people that I've interviewed for this show alone that, were working some shitty 9 to 5 or just
Mm.
stuck in a career they didn't enjoy. And, over time, they just kept iterating on their craft, whether it's photography, whether it's painting, you name it. Um, they were eventually able to break through, have an audience, and now they're able to do it full time. So, obviously, yes, there's no ignoring the fact that there's going to be growing pains and people are going to get laid off. There's going to be a lot of restructuring in the creative economy. At the same time, on the other side of that coin, it's also true that all those people that are laid off, okay, well, now you have time to create your own vision. Now, if you want to have your own studio or your own show or what have you, there's an endless amount of platforms out there where you can actually create something new. So, like you said, it's not that it's that human creativity is being destroyed or something is being killed. It's just being transferred, and because we're in the middle of that transfer and we've never really lived through something like AI before, that like there's we're going through the growing pains. It's all just part of the process.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you're right. More people are starting to create. Uh, the compression of time is something that helps democratize in a way. Having, I mean, I work a job. I have 3 kids, so finding the time for art was not really possible with other mediums, especially since I want to experiment a lot.
Hmm.
AI was responding to me fast, very fast. So I thought it was doable, right, to fit it into my life, and it changed. And the other thing that I find that since it's so fast at prototyping ideas, uh, you feel your ideas faster, which is very precious. You can tell whether it doesn't work, and you don't just bring something through just because you spend time on it, like sunk cost fallacy.
Hmm.
Um, um, you actually can tell from early on whether an idea is working, not working, and you will just focus on something else. Just say, okay, I didn't spend 5 years doing it, so I'm comfortable killing it and saying it wasn't a very good idea. Maybe it's because I come from advertising where we're supposed to be killing our ideas all the time, but I think it's good to have this thing. When I first launched my first collection, I it was my breakthrough with Fellowship. I still work with them, and I have a great relation with the curator Alejandro Cartagena. It was very important in my path to art. And the first year before that, I was sending stuff to him, and he was rejecting everything. And we often joke about that. I was still trying to find a way. But rather than just being stubborn about things that didn't work, and just saying, "Oh, this has to work," and you just don't understand me, I was more comfortable killing that stuff and moving on to something else. And I still do that. I start ideas and I kill them, like quite soon if I see that they don't really work. And the tool is very helpful in this, because the tool allows you, these kind of tools allow you to do this, and sacrifice something to just move forward. So yeah, I think true creative people, but I also see that in the agency environment, very creative people are embracing the tools without even realizing. They just see, okay, they just say, I have an idea, my mind is uh, rushing forward all the time. If I can do that faster with the tool, and just with an AI tool, and see it applied, and see if it works, and maybe do it even crazier, I will just do that. I don't care what kind of tool that is, whether it's painting, whether it's photography, CGI or AI. I mean, that's just the surface. And I think that's the right approach. I mean, after all, you have an idea, you want to express the idea, you want to play around. The tool is just transient. It's not something that will stay. So yeah, there is a lot of moral panic, but moral panic comes with tech all the time, right? We get new tech, you get new ideas, you get some moral panic, and then people get through. We will stop talking about the AI in 2 years, I guess. It will not be the news anymore. I mean, artists will just use it with the other tools, and it'll be just fine. I mean, we get great artists, uh, any kind of artists. So we will judge the art, not the tool anymore.
Yeah, no, that's well said. I mean, I think I agree with you there because, I mean, look, like as you said, it's not just about typing in a prompt and having it be generated. There's so much more work that has to go into it, especially if you're training your own model. And to all the people that say like, oh, you just prompted your way into it, you just like typed in some words and it made it all for you. It's like, okay, well then, if I'm able to do this and have a career, then why doesn't everyone just do this and print free money? You know, why doesn't everyone just do this? Well, because it's hard work. I mean, even like my limited exposure with like working with AI models or trying to set one up on my own PC, like it's not the easiest thing, especially for people that don't have a technical background. And not just that, but having the vision for what you want generated and trying to make it come to life, the reiterating and all that. It's a process in and of itself. Like, okay, do you have to study like color theory or composition or go to art school for it? No. You know, is it like as manually technical? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. But it's a it's a different medium in and of itself. There's not really anything to compare it to. So to say that like it's easy, you know, it's probably the same thing that people said about DSLRs when they came out. You know, digital cameras. Like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, you just
yeah.
point and click. It's like no, well you still have to consider the shot. You still have to consider what lens you're using, shutter speed, and all that. There's still all these things to take into consideration. So, um, yeah, it's as you said. It's right now we're just going through that phase of moral panic.
Yeah, and circling back to the advertising thing, there are many elements that are in common with creative direction. Um, because to get to a great idea in advertising, you need to have a very clear vision from the beginning and being able to select at the end of the process, which is always the hardest part. You'll get some nice ideas, but killing the bad ones and finding what works is also a part of it. And with AI, even more so, because you need, as you say, the vision in the beginning, because otherwise you can do just anything, and being able to do just anything is a big trouble, right?
Hmm.
It's easy to get lost. And since AI is so fast at producing and iterating, you need also to be very good at picking things out from the results, right? Some artists I know they generate an insane amount of images, which of course they're generated within uh, let's say a cone of possibility that they decided, so they give the first direction, but then they are able to pick the results that fit their initial vision. So there is a lot of intentionality in AI art, a lot. Of course, if you don't put your guidance in it, you're just going to get generic AI slop, which we see a lot. Like
Hmm.
when you're not driving, the model is driving. It's something that we don't see with other tools, maybe. The model is capable, the models, the tools are capable of, in a way, compensating whatever you're not thinking of. If you're not deciding for a style, if you're not deciding for a subject, the model will do it by itself. That's pretty new. So you still get something acceptable, but you lost control. And the amount of control that you want is where you define your artistic practice. And I would say that even too much control sometimes is a problem because you end up stifling the model a little bit. Uh, but yeah, AI art is mostly about deciding where you put your control and being able to hold that control. That's a big part of the work.
Absolutely. And that's a good as place to end it as any because I know you got to run. Um, I appreciate you
Yeah,
making the
sir.
time to come on today. It's been really insightful to hear about your experience and all the different fields you've worked in.
It was great to be here, and thanks for involving me. It's always a pleasure to share some views and ramblings about these things and more.
Of course, yeah. And in terms of socials, people can just find you at Andrea_Ciulu.
Yeah, that's on X and without the underscore on Instagram.
Perfect. Yeah, check him out, guys. We'll provide a link in the description so you can see his work. And I'm guessing you have some on for sale as well, or
Yeah. There are actually a couple still for sale on Daily. Uh, it's the um, this is from the Nature of Our Dreams, which is a small series using the style of photocopies but animated. Um, it's like this one. Wait, I will just share with you. Yeah, like the gardener was sold. And another series which I actually didn't show today. It's called Uncontacted. It was mostly sold actually. There is actually one piece that is still for sale, which is this one is a very intricate series, lot of details, and is based upon the idea of a drone view of humans, which sadly is the way we get to see humans more and more today. So it's two chapters, War and Peace, and this one is from the War chapter, and it's the Arsenal. Uh, so yeah, some pieces, and then I think the other ones are on secondary market, so they're out of my hand now. Definitely, they're just going around on the streets in AM.
right on. Yeah, if you guys are lucky, you might be able to get one of these. So yeah, please do check them out. And yeah, once again, Andrea, thank you for making the time today. It's been really cool to hear about your experience in all these different fields.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for listening.
Perfect. And we'll see you guys later. Thank you.